That day I was hard working on a case, trying to solve the greatest mystery of all, the explanatory gap between brain and consciousness. It's a gap like no other gap. Here we have physical stuff on one side, and on the other, immaterial, subjective experience. No matter how hard I searched, the answers eluded me. Sometimes when you get stuck like this, it means you gotta re-examine your starting points. What is consciousness anyway? According to the textbook, it is a state of awareness of sensations or ideas. Awareness. There's a clue. A clue for what? I know not. And then there's qualia. Qualia, qualia, qualia. Damn you, qualia. These individual instances of subjective, conscious experience are baffling to me. Here, I see the cup that contains my coffee. I smell its aromas. I savor its taste. And yet, how could I ever know what it's like for someone else to have these sensations? Are others even conscious like me? Do others exist? Or are they merely products of my consciousness? No, I mustn't go there. That's a dead end. I'm going to have to interview the usual suspects and see if I can get closer to solving this mystery. The game's afoot. Let us not make haste.
Let me tell you what consciousness is. It's a total conspiracy. A grand illusion like those optical illusions and visual blind spots that make you think that you're seeing something when in fact it's just a byproduct of certain automatic processes of the mind. You see, behind the scenes of consciousness and the conscious activity is a whole set of unconscious processes conspiring to make you do something for reasons you're not aware of. It's biasing your conscious perception, attention, memory, and decisions. Now, let's consider action slips as an example of this. We rely on unconscious, habitual ways of responding when we're not consciously paying attention to things, leading us to make all sorts of mistakes. But even when we're paying attention, our unconscious guides our conscious thoughts in ways that are beyond our awareness. This includes attentional bias that gets us focusing on some information to the neglect of others. Just like the industrial mass complex wants to distract us from their nefarious activities. Did you see my interview with Channel 9 News before? It was awesome. There are biases of memory that lead to false memories. There are biases in our concepts that lead us to overgeneralize or misrepresent information. And then there are biases that lead us to make all sorts of illogical judgments and decisions, like not putting the dots together that the industrial mass complex is conspiring to make things worse for us. So in conclusion, consciousness is a total conspiracy, and the unconscious is like the Illuminati of the mind, pulling the strings of us, the puppets. And yet the unconscious is so irresistible. It's inflexible and invisible in ways that are difficult to override. Of course, most people, the sheep, are happy to be unaware of their mental processing. Their awareness would get overloaded if they had to process that much information. But I see through those lies, and I know the truth of the mind. It's all about the unconscious processing. Whoa, that's a pretty profound question. What is consciousness? Well, let me consult my inner spirit animals. Whoa! Thank you! How about my other spirit animal? Alright, let me try to answer the question a little bit. It's a really hard one though. When I look inside my mind's eye, I do introspection. It's totally sweet. All I gotta do is look inside, man, and just take in the scenery. Describe what's happening. For me, I think it's like a theater. And I like to go to the theater all the time. Well, I used to, and until certain things happened recently. I'm not sure what's going on, but I woke up after a few months and like people are wearing masks and things, which is pretty cool because I got masks that are like tie-dye like this. So now people say you can't trust the process of introspection, that it produces mistaken beliefs that result from after the fact reconstructions and inferences. But that's just because they haven't achieved the higher states of consciousness. I like being one with the universe. I also like engaging in metacognition because it's like so meta, man. To think about my thinking and then think about my thinking about my thinking. Whoa, I just did inception of the mind there. Of course, to monitor and control my mental processes requires some skill, like a good executive control, which I got, because, I can play Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild for like 20 hours straight, and that's like some major mental control. Certainly is mental, that's for sure. It also requires self-monitoring and self-reflection. And that's not hard for me either because I like looking at myself, especially when I'm dreaming. I have these lucid dreams where I'm just floating over my body, observing everything. It's totally awesome. It's like what the Zen master Zhuangzi once said. Once upon a time, I dreamt I was a butterfly, fluttering hither and thither to all intents and purposes. A butterfly. I was conscious only of my happiness as a butterfly, unaware that I was myself. Soon I awoke, and there I was, veritably myself again. That's an awesome quote. Now, I don't know what the word veritably means, and I don't think I've ever seen a butterfly before, but I can totally relate to flying butter. Whoa, that's some awesome butterfly. Now, Nagel wondered what it's like to be a bat. Now, I'm wondering what is it like to be a stick of butter flying? So in conclusion, I would say consciousness is about subjectivity, and you can't reduce it to any biology or unconscious processes. It's something irreplaceable and undescribable. It's so awesome. And I try to get into higher states of consciousness all the time. Peace.
What is consciousness? I hate this question. It's so stupid. Ask me what the brain does instead. That's all we are. A piece of electrical meat that will eventually rot. The only thing that's really worth my time are the neural correlates of consciousness. Even then, whatever. You know how I know we're all just brain meat? Look at what happens when the brain's damaged. Consciousness is completely affected. And then there are these conditions like blindsight. Someone's got their occipital lobes damaged, which, who really wants to see this world anyway? Makes me sick. But these patients who've experienced damage to the striate cortex are still able to make visual discriminations, can often guess what they've seen or where they saw it, even though they have no conscious awareness of having seen it. They also sometimes avoid walking into objects when navigating their environments. You want to know why? Because the brainstem does a lot of that processing for them and other areas outside of conscious awareness. There are primitive brain centers that are involved in many of our responses that don't require consciousness. If you look at people, they really don't seem like they're doing a whole heck of a lot more than what the brainstem does for them. There's also the anterior cingulate cortex, which plays a central role in attention and monitoring conflict, which I experience a lot of because I'm always fighting with everyone who thinks that life has meaning. It helps us override well-practiced behaviors to do something new, whatever that means. But what is consciousness? Well, if I have to answer the question, I'd call it the neuronal workspace. It's where information from different neural systems are glued together to create a unified experience. You might recognize this idea if you've come across feature integration theory and neural synchrony. Not that you would have anyway. The workspace enables the individual to maintain mental representations in an active state of prolonged periods of time. The workspace links other active areas of the brain, allowing for the executive to make decisions about current processing, like deciding what my next tattoo will be. Thinking about getting a pentagram on my forehead. What do you think? The workspace allows the executive to detect conflict that may arise from competing demands or goals. It allows you to create new ideas and rise above habit. One possible difference between a sleeping brain and an awake brain relates to the neuronal workspace. When you're awake, the neuronal workspace allows areas of the brain to communicate with each other. But whatever. Who cares anyway? So whether there's consciousness or not, or whether it's unconscious or whatever, it all comes back to the brain. And the brain's gonna rot one day. It's going to just be in the ground and dust. And that's it. So if you want to study consciousness, look at the neural correlates of consciousness. And I kind of like the neuronal workspace model. It kind of makes sense to me. Thanks. After interviewing an ordinary person, the hippy-dippy professor man and goth guy, I found myself getting nowhere. Each of them came at consciousness from different angles. Consciousness as an illusion, consciousness as subjective experience, and consciousness as brain activity. How to decide among these? What criteria should I use? It's clear I have to dig deeper. I have to look at this from a philosophical perspective, to examine questions of identity, cause and effect, mind and matter. Just like you should wash your hands before you eat, we need philosophy to clean up our thinking before engaging in scientific questions like these. And one question I have right now is, what if consciousness is not one thing, some unified experience? That in fact there are multiple streams going on at once, and each stream is constantly being edited and revised as new information comes. And what if I'm not even a self, but a single stream of thought within a set of other thought streams, all competing for attention in one brain? What if I'm not one, but many? Am I a self? Or am I merely part of some conglomeration of selves? The mystery keeps getting deeper and deeper. Thank you for spending some time in my head throughout this cognitive psychology series. This will be the last video of this series. And I'll be starting a different series soon called Everybody Lies, where we look at cognitive biases as they help us to understand issues going on in contemporary society and in social trends. To support this channel and my attempts to blend entertainment and education in teaching cognitive psychology, please share these videos and the playlist, and please subscribe. I'll see you next time.